What if a country didn't just attack another nation's military, but instead started eliminating its entire leadership structure? Not soldiers on the battlefield, but the people running the system itself. Over the past few weeks, this is exactly what has been happening to Iran. Top generals, security chiefs, political masterminds, one by one, they're gone. And now, one of the most powerful figures in Iran, a man many believed was quietly running the country behind the scenes, has been killed. This changes everything. The Middle East is once again on edge. But this time, the situation feels very different. This is not just another round of airstrikes or a temporary escalation between longtime rivals. What we're seeing now is a calculated, multi-layered campaign targeting the very core of Iran's power structure. According to multiple international reports, Israel has been carrying out precision strikes deep inside Iran, not just on military bases, but on individuals, the people who make decisions, who control strategy, who hold the system together. And the latest development may be the most significant so far. At the center of this story is a name that carries enormous weight in Iran, Ali Larijani. To many outside observers, he may not have been the most visible figure, but inside Iran, he was one of the most powerful men in the entire system. He served as Speaker of Parliament for over a decade, Iran's chief nuclear negotiator, head of the Supreme National Security Council, and more importantly, he was a trusted insider, deeply connected to the country's highest leadership. Some analysts described him as a kingmaker, a man who influenced decisions from behind the scenes. In times of crisis, figures like Larijani become even more important. They coordinate, they stabilize, they keep the system functioning. But now, he's gone. Reports indicate that Larijani was killed in a targeted airstrike near Tehran along with members of his family and close associates. This was not a random strike. It was precise, it was intentional, and it sends a very clear message. To understand why this matters so much, you have to look at the bigger picture, because this wasn't the first high-profile target. In recent weeks, multiple senior Iranian figures have been killed: military commanders, intelligence officials, security leaders, and each strike appears to follow a similar pattern: precise targeting, high-value individuals, minimal randomness. This is what experts call a decapitation strategy. Instead of fighting an enemy head-on, you remove the leadership that holds everything together, because without leadership, even the strongest systems begin to fall apart. And that's exactly what may be happening here. But the strikes haven't just focused on external military leadership, they've also targeted figures responsible for internal control. One of those figures was a top commander of the Basij militia. Now, if you're not familiar with the Basij, it plays a critical role inside Iran. This is the force responsible for controlling protests, enforcing government authority, maintaining internal order. In other words, it's one of the key tools the government uses to stay in power. And now, even that layer of control is being weakened. When you combine this with the loss of strategic leadership, you start to see a dangerous pattern. The system is being pressured from both the outside and the inside. Of course, Iran has not remained passive. In response to these attacks, it has launched waves of missiles and drones. Targets have included Israeli cities, military infrastructure, strategic locations across the region. Some of these attacks have caused real damage and civilian casualties. This marks a major shift, because for years, the conflict between Iran and Israel was mostly indirect, fought through proxies, through covert operations. But now, this is becoming a direct confrontation, and that significantly raises the stakes. So the big question is, why focus so heavily on leadership? Why not just destroy military bases or weapon systems? The answer lies in strategy. Military assets can be rebuilt, weapons can be replaced, but experienced leadership, especially at the highest levels, is much harder to replace. These are people who understand complex systems, manage networks of power, make critical decisions under pressure. Removing them creates confusion, it disrupts coordination, it slows down response time, Before this escalation, the country had faced widespread protests, the economy was struggling under sanctions, public dissatisfaction was growing. Now, imagine all of that, combined with the sudden loss of multiple key leaders. It creates uncertainty, it creates fear, and it increases the risk of instability. There are already reports of increased security crackdowns, arrests of suspected informants, efforts to prevent leaks. Because when leadership is being targeted so precisely, it raises another concern. How is the information being obtained? Is there infiltration, internal leaks? These questions alone can create distrust within the system. Situations like this are extremely rare. It's not common for a country to lose multiple top-level figures in such a short period of time. And when it does happen, the effects can be unpredictable. We're talking about decision-making delays, conflicting power centers, emergency leadership arrangements. In some cases, it can even lead to internal divisions, because when the top layer weakens, others may try to step in, and that can create competition instead of coordination. But this situation doesn't just affect Iran, it has global consequences. One major concern is energy. The Middle East plays a critical role in global oil supply, and any instability in this region can impact prices worldwide. Another concern is regional escalation. Countries across the Middle East are watching closely. Some are already involved directly or indirectly. If this conflict spreads, it could turn into a much larger regional war. And then there's the United States. With its strategic interests in the region, any further escalation could draw it in more directly, which raises the possibility of a broader international conflict. So where does this go from here? There are a few possible scenarios. The first is full escalation. Iran responds with larger, more aggressive attacks. Israel intensifies its campaign, and the conflict spreads across the region. The second is internal instability. The continued loss of leadership leads to power struggles, weak coordination, potential internal unrest. And the third is controlled de-escalation. International pressure pushes both sides to reduce tensions, at least temporarily. But even in that case, the underlying conflict remains unresolved. What we're witnessing right now is not just another chapter in a long-standing conflict. This is something different, a strategy that focuses not just on fighting an enemy, but on reshaping its internal structure. The targeting of figures like Ali Larijani suggests a deeper objective: to weaken the system, not just on the battlefield, but at its core. And the outcome of this strategy could reshape the balance of power across the entire region. So now the question is, where does this lead? Does it push the region toward a wider war, or does it trigger changes from within? Let me know what you think. And if you want more clear, in-depth breakdowns of global conflicts, make sure to subscribe, because what happens next may not stay in the Middle East. It could impact the entire world.